All right, ladies and gents, we're live.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town of Port Royal's March 3rd public hearing. This public hearing has been announced in the paper, and item number item 2 on our agenda, and A is a public hearing for ordinance 20-20-34, an ordinance repealing in its entirety Chapter 9 flood damage prevention of the Town of Port Royal Code of Ordinances and replacing it with the attached newly revised Chapter 9 flood damage prevention. I believe we've got a short summary on the changes that are happening between these two ordinances.
Yeah, I'll defer to Linda a little bit, but obviously the crux of this is that we need to adopt these maps to be in compliance with the community rating system. And hopefully, Linda, I didn't steal most of your thunder. I'll let you touch on some of the other stuff.
Yes, this is an opportunity, number one, to adopt the new flood maps that we've been waiting for quite some time. The last time our flood maps in South Carolina were updated was 1986. So things have changed since then. This will help staff ascertain more accurately where properties are, where property bound, the new parcel lines of people's property. The point is that we here in Town Hall are a source of information for the public in general to know where they stand with regard to the floodplain. Additionally, we generally look at this ordinance about every 5 years. We get inspected by FEMA. And so we want to always have a flood ordinance that conforms to the needs and the standards that FEMA puts forward to the state of South Carolina through SCDNR. These changes, this is the state's model ordinance. That's what we've got here. That's what we're following. It's a boilerplate. And so it has been vetted up to SCDNR. In addition to, we've showed it around to our fellow jurisdictions. The city of Beaufort, and Reese is familiar, he's probably seen this, has similar language. They're going through a similar process right now this month. It does update the requirements of the base flood elevation. So you would have seen that in there. We are clearly stating that we are adopting a freeboard ordinance. That means 1 foot above the regulations. So that's in there this time around. That wasn't in there in a previous edition. That's all I think I have as an explanation. I'll be glad to answer any questions. We do have on the conference call Juliana Smith, who is with the Coastal Conservation League.
I think we'll talk about the ordinance in the workshop, but for the public hearing section, I just wanted the public to have a briefing of what's happening and see if there's any public comment now. And we'll discuss anything that the council feels in our regular workshop is following this. But I appreciate you giving that update to the public. Brooke, do we have any public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, I will go to item B, but we'll leave A open in case somebody does chime in a little bit late on the ordinance with the delay on Facebook. But the second ordinance that we're opening the public hearing for is ordinance 20-21-5, an ordinance to authorize the town manager to convey excess real property to facilitate the construction of sidewalks within the town of Port Royal, described as Beaufort County Tax District 110, map 11, parcels 92E, 45, 452, 453, 454. This is approximately 250 feet on 12th Street. There was a presentation for this last month. So again, this is open for public comment. We'll go ahead and give both of these about a minute. And if we don't hear anything, we'll leave the public hearing and start the workshop. Does everybody agree with that?
Great.
Yeah, that's fine.
Brooke, anything coming in? So
No,
we,
sir.
okay, very good. So we've received no emails prior to the meeting start, which was published in the agenda. And there are no comments that have come in during this meeting. We've got up on the screen now the highlight of the sidewalk section on 12th Street, where there are currently some houses being built. And hearing nothing else, we will go ahead and close the public hearing. And we will, sorry, I'm trying to get the document to open up, and of course, it's not going to open. We will open our regular council workshop. And I'm having a problem getting the document to open. Can you bring up the agenda, Van? Can you bring up the agenda? I seem to got locked out of the OneDrive right now.
I'm on, I'm using my desktop as my backup and I'm on the,
Okay, all right, give
Zoom
me a
meeting
second. I think
stuff.
I got back in it. There we go. So, sorry, everybody, had a little problem with technology this evening. So we're going to go ahead and start our March 3rd council workshop. This is any comments should have been emailed beforehand to Brooke. But we'll go ahead and get started. First thing we have is an interview of board positions. Brooke, what do we have tonight?
We have 2 applicants for the Parks and Recreation Commission. That was the position for Mr. Greg Shelton. And they are Suzanne Futrell, and we brought back, I believe, where's the-
John Hazel?
John Hazel, yes, sir.
Are they, I don't see anybody. Are they in the lobby waiting to come in?
Tony, do you have anyone in the waiting room?
Yes, I do. I have John.
Well, let's go ahead and hear from John then and hopefully Suzanne joins us.
Okay, John has all the permissions to speak.
Good evening, John, and thank you once again for being interested in one of our boards and commissions.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
All right. Well, thanks for having me back. Like I said, the first time I'm excited to try and get involved in the community in any way that you guys seem fit. So my resume hasn't changed much from the last time we spoke. Still owner and operator of Devil Dog headquarters here in Port Royal. Plan to stay here for quite some time. I've got 23 years of background in the Marine Corps. I was a truck driver for 16 years, and then I was a senior enlisted advisor for the last 4 years before I retired. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to help answer them.
Anybody have any questions? I failed mine last time we interviewed you, so I'm good. Daryl, Jerry,
Yeah, I remember from last time.
very good. John, thanks again. We really appreciate this. As you know, we do these interviews at our workshop. The following week, we have our council meetings, and at the council meetings themselves is when we actually do the appointments. So hopefully you can join us again next week and hear what council's decision is on this. And thank you.
Yes,
again.
sir. No problem.
Thank you, John, for your willingness to serve the town of Port Royal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jerry.
And did Suzanne join the waiting room?
So the only individual I see in the waiting room is John.
Okay. So we will move on then. If she happens to pop in during the meeting, for some reason she's running into some technology issues, please let us know.
I'll keep an eye on it for you, sir.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is our council briefing from the town manager. Van.
All right, we'll start out with stormwater. Obviously, we've had a little bit of rain in the last a few days, a couple of weeks, really, to be quite honest with you. But I'll start up with Cypress Wetlands. We have a meeting set up on, I believe, March 9th with Folkland Management and Solitude, which is the company we use for our wetlands pond maintenance. And we're going to go over an ongoing maintenance plan, obviously related to the work that we recently did, as well as the replanting that took place earlier, I believe late last week, which you see the green tube sticking out of one of the islands. That's part of it. But I will have them down again. We are still waiting on Corps of Engineers approval for that water retention structure. In one of the canals, we've got kind of an earthen bank in there at the moment, which is serving at least temporarily. Hopefully won't get breached with the amount of rain that we've had recently. But that is where we stand with that. We have had some issues in the village recently with some standing water on sidewalks because of the amount of rain. A lot of that, to be quite honest with you, is we have a significant number of vehicles that do park along that right of way adjacent to those sidewalks. And I drove through this afternoon just to kind of look at it based upon the rain we had in the last 24 hours. And we do still have some standing water a couple hours after the rain, and as well as some puddling in what I would consider those depressed areas where we are seeing a fair amount of vehicle parking. On 10th Street, I did witness or looked and saw a couple of raised sidewalks caused by the root system. The oak trees that are there, all are aware of the evaluation that was done by Michael Murphy. So the trees in terms of spacing are fine. We may have to address some of the sidewalks. I'll probably look into bringing back the company that kind of did some shaving for us a few years ago to maybe level some of those out where we can. And then we may take a look at how drainage works there. And, that may be a larger discussion of on-street parking that you guys may want to undertake. Because the way the village was originally designed is that a lot of the drainage was supposed to occur behind those houses. Water would come off, shed from the front to the back. But as you can imagine, over time, fences have been added, other structures in the yards, topography changes. And so we're dealing kind of with the results of that. So it's something that's on our radar that we're going to probably have to take up sooner than later. And then obviously we've discussed stormwater and some other issues that I think we're working with the city on, getting a joint letter out, just making them aware of some concerns we have, and we're working through that. The second item I think is something we'll discuss next week in more detail. I just wanted to make y'all aware that I had received some of the background information to maybe add a little bit to that discussion on two fronts. So there are two separate issues that we were dealing with. CDBG, both the startup contracts have been signed.
Van, just for so that the public, that's talking about the potential property swaps. We'll be talking more about that next week.
Right.
Sorry, they don't know what the title.
Yep. CDBG's startup contracts for both of those rewarded contracts have been signed. And then I sent y'all an attached report this month from our engineer who gave you kind of a status update on where he was in both of those. I've been participating in some of the webinars related to CDBGs because I know we were trying to figure out, something we could potentially do in the Casablanca area, and we're still trying to work through that. It could be that, we could revisit stormwater drainage. That it's been a while since we did that back through there, maybe evaluate that system again. But it's something we'll need to take a look at. Spanish Moss Trail, not much new to report, other than we're still wrestling with, getting it across Rebo Road and evaluating the options. I think hopefully we'll have some news on that here shortly as we work through that one. Gray Ghost, the port, for the most part, we've been working on the draft of the master plan, which was required in the curing of the letter that we sent to them. I think we're pretty close other than resolving maybe, some eventual use issues adjacent to Sands Beach Road and how we work with the developers on either side of that road. I think other than that, I think we filled in the blanks. Linda, do you have anything you might want to add to that? I know that Linda and I both met with the planner several times, as well as Gray Ghost, to kind of go through that document.
And I just would add that the town architect, Bill Harris, has attended the most meeting. So he's had an opportunity to look at it. Both he and I have been very pleased with the master plan that is evolving and being created for the property. Gives us a lot of predictability and helps us as we make decisions and permits start to come in, how to address those. So we're very pleased.
All right, next is Baynard Cove. There is a kind of a temporary.
Man, I'm sorry, back up one. The cure letter, there was some dates in March in the original cure letter. Maybe we need to revisit that and then possibly an executive session next month to make sure that everything's been done that they said they would do in that letter.
Yeah. All right. Oh yeah, shrimp facility. If you recall, 5-6 months ago, we put together a list of projects with the other municipalities in the county for consideration of non-recurring surplus dollars at the state level. I'm just waiting for an update to see where any of that stands. We all know that we need participation other than the town of Port Royal in assisting in moving the shrimping industry forward. As you all know, since 2006, the town has poured about $2 million into keeping that dock afloat, no pun intended. And I think if we want to make it viable moving forward, we're going to have participation from another entity other than the town of Port Royal. So hopefully we'll get somewhere with some assistance from the state. All right. Baynard Cove, as I mentioned, just real quickly, there's a temporary stop work order in place. I think it has to do with an easement issue for water and sewer from the adjacent property, which is Willow Point. I think they're trying to resolve whatever conflict there may be. I think it was the intent of Baynard Cove to access those utilities through a street end and an easement and a adjacent property to serve them. But I think obviously Willow Point HOA has taken issue with that, and that'll be resolved by the courts. And so I've been out there a couple of times just to see if there's been any activity, and it is completely ceased at this point.
And Van, the stop work order has not been issued by the town of Port Royal.
No, absolutely not.
Right, the town of Port Royal is not the one that's issued that stop work order. I just wanted to make sure I stated that.
Traffic and road projects. I'm gonna shift back to the file and take a look at the report that I included in your packets from the engineer, just kind of giving you a summary of, oh Lord, here it is. Well, I thought it was in this, non-agenda items. Let me go to this folder. Here we go, project updates. There were several things that Michael Klink and his group were working on. Waddell Road crosswalk, the design was completed. We responded to the first round of DOT permit comments. DOT requested pedestrian counts for Waddell crosswalk location, mentions pedestrian counts for Southside and Talbert. I told them to stop incurring any more expenses on this particular project. We've spent almost $10,000 to this point on engineering so that we can put paint on the road to secure safe passage across the street. We all know that pedestrian counts will not justify the crossing. However, we do know that safety should justify the crossing. And that is the point I asked Michael to make to them before we spend another dollar doing this. It makes sense that where one sidewalk ends and starts on the other side of the street, that there be some sort of crossing there. We have done, in my opinion, all we need to do.
Yes.
And I think the DOT needs to work with us on this particular issue.
I think as the person who said, I think we needed to apply the encroachment permit for that, I think you are right. $10,000 is enough on this. If you could put together a summary along with maybe even getting me a copy of the package, I think it's time for me to take this up a level and outside of your hands and request a meeting with DOT and maybe one of our state legislators to say this makes no sense.
Right. And I can do that. It is pretty much done. It is in
Yeah,
hand.
I figured as
I'll
much.
pass
Just
it
let's
along.
do that. Council, I think it's time that we push this issue. Staff has done, and I just don't want to spend any more money on this, not this year. Obviously, we can't. I mean, what it would have cost to put down that paint is nothing compared to what we spend to say it can be used. It is a street. It's very simple. Carteret Street has crosswalks with no pedestrians, with stop pedestrian signs all up and down it, and we can't get it on Waddell Road. It's time for us to take this up a notch, and that means, our hands.
Is their position just wait till someone gets killed and then it's serious enough?
Their position is it's going to slow down cars. Remember, that's what DOT does. How quickly can we move cars? Our position is pedestrians are more important. So.
And then, one of the suggestions they made was that we needed to continue the sidewalk from where it dead ends to all the way up to to Hardee's, where it restarts. My point to them was we're trying to get students from the Casablanca neighborhood across the street so that they can move towards Beaufort Middle School and Beaufort Elementary. And they do not walk towards Hardee's. Yeah, or Mossy Oaks. Yeah, they do not walk towards Hardee's. They walk down to Talbert, then down Talbert to get it over. So,
Right, and the kids and the children from Mossy Oaks and Waddell to the park at Casablanca. This is
Correct.
two solid needs. And this is a waste of our dollars and your time. So it's time that I waste some of my time and get this, see if we can't push. And I'm sure one of you council members would be more than willing to join me in this effort.
right.
It's just absurd.
And then just the couple of next ones are the Paris Avenue traffic device. That's when we're talking about the speed hump or bumper island, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be rolling that into the Paris Avenue Streetscape CDBG project. It will take that down at once. What you can see is we've contracted with the subs, Atlas Surveying, J.K. Tiller Associates, Chatham Engineering. We're finalizing a proposal and we're getting that to Jessica Daly. She has to have all that in place, and she's requested a figure for the environmental review costs. Because it's federal, those are things that we all have to roll into that. Royal Palms Gravity Sewer CDBG did obviously an environmental review stage here as well. And hopefully we'll get that squared away and started in 2 months, hopefully with construction completed by June of 2022. And just going back to Paris Avenue Streetscape, looking for December of 2022 on completion there. The small project, Paris Avenue 6-inch water main crossing, which is scheduled for March 9th. We'll have somebody on site for that. And just another topic that, I've kind of mentioned to the mayor at this point. There's a small project on 12th Street. And there was some discussion about overhead utilities versus buried utilities. Because it was an existing poles there, I think Dominion wanted to add 3 poles on the other side of 12th Street to service 5 houses. Needless to say, we're not very excited about the addition of 3 poles to 12th Street. So, we're going to have to work with the land developer and the utility to work on getting those utilities buried. We understand that the area is served by overhead, but we've been trying to transition away from that. And I can't imagine wanting to add 3 poles for 5 houses on the opposite side of the street.
And the
So
other, right, and the other thing is not only the 3 poles, but there is already a maze or spaghetti of wires that go in every direction on 12th Street, serving houses all the way around the corner. And then we're just going to have 3 more poles with 3 more sets of wires spanning in every direction. There's got to be a better way to build a utility. That's just the opinion, aesthetics reasons, and also safety during hurricanes. So We're just trying to see if we can't work with them. And certainly for every pole that they have to add, I would love 2 abandoned poles to be removed in some way. As you know, that's a little thing that I have an issue with, is that how many abandoned poles are around around our town.
Yep. All right. Moving on to Porter's Chapel. In your packets, I included the landscape plan.
So,
Go ahead.
can I ask real quick, and this is not exactly the topic, but just the traffic and roads made me think about, have any of y'all seen the updated county capital improvement projects list and of our roads and things that we brought up? Have y'all seen it? Have they been added?
We're trying to set up a meeting right now
Okay.
to discuss where those things are. I don't think if we're working on all of the impact fee lists, to be quite honest with you, and where municipal projects fit into all of those lists. Is that a fair assessment, Mayor?
I think it's absolutely a fair assessment. There is going to be no movement until this council is confident of the list, the priority of the list. And the reality is there's going to be very little movement as far as all the municipalities are concerned until there is some resolution among the municipalities in the county on this issue.
Because if I remember, we were supposed to see the list the next day. After
I think
our
I think it was 2 days later. It was a Wednesday meeting, and he said we'd have it by Friday. I think you're absolutely right. That was over a month ago. So none of us have seen it. I have asked, and sorry, gentlemen, I can't produce this one. Ladies.
Porter's Chapel, in your packets, there was a, kind of a sketched out landscape plan as we kind of move towards hopefully an eventual grand opening. I've had some recent communication with Professor Landrum about the activities of his classroom, and I'm going to forward y'all an email, some ideas he has about for the ribbon cutting and grand reopening, which are very they're above my pay grade in terms of attracting the speaker that he'd like to see there. So I may be calling on y'all to assist me with that, but I'll forward that to you. I want to keep that under wraps. But our plan is to, 1, get the landscaping in place, 2, get the sign that you guys approved made, not installed, because we don't want it revealed just yet. And then I did meet with Scott Todorsky from the National Park Service last week, and they're basically operating in a scaled down way there now, conducting tours, taking people to the site, and that's worked out well. He's doing a lot of outreach. You'll see them pretty actively asking for, people that want to participate in those visits at the farmers market on Saturday. And he's also going to be able to program some dollars for maintenance and, basically cleaning the building. So we're pretty excited about having them there. And then this, combined with what we're doing with USCB is pretty exciting. So I will send you the email from Robert, and you guys take a look at it and tell me what you think.
Van, while we're on the Porter's Chapel and the Naval Heritage Park, last Friday was the Northern Regional Plan Committee meeting. Jerry, I believe you were in the meeting with us as well. There was a presentation. There was a presentation. A list came out of the county, has now kind of put together all the parks in the county and how the parks are rated, whether they are a community park, a local park, a regional park, a passive park. All of those are on there. Obviously, Port Royal Parks have made the list. The concern I had and pointed out, which was surprising, is after we had met with county representatives about designating the Naval Heritage Park as a regional park, it was not on that list as a regional park. It appeared that list had been produced slightly before and they hadn't gotten that thing. So I mentioned that to Rob Merchant, who was producing the list, and he was going to get that moved towards the regional. And then I also asked them to separate out the Sands Beach and the boat landing as 2 separate items, because the boat landing is owned and operated by the county. Sands Beach is ours. They really are 2 separate entities down there, one being the beach. There's a question of whether or not it's passive, but in a lot of ways it is passive in what it does. And then the boat landing is a boat landing, and they should not be lumped together in that way. So I've asked them to separate that as well. So I just wanted to make sure you knew what was happening. That list will come out in public and we'll all get to see it real soon. I'll try to get us a copy of that. Jerry, did I cover that? You were there.
Yes, you did well. Thank you.
No problem. All right.
All
Go ahead,
right.
Ben.
Naval Hospital sidewalk and National Park relocation. That's the fence line. I got an email from TAB today. The DOT submitted their survey work and the scope to Jacksonville. There are some minor tweaks, so there is some progress there. We kind of know where the sidewalk is going to go, and the abandonment of that property, whether it's a right of way or whatever it is, it will give us the flexibility to do what we need to do adjacent to the existing Naval Heritage Park to get some connectivity and to address our traffic concerns there. So I'm still looking at the stuff that Tab sent me this afternoon, and I'll let you know. The email that he received back from Jacksonville and that was sent to DOT as well is that, yeah, there are some minor tweaks that need to happen, but it looked pretty good. So that's good news. That's only on the Naval Hospital sidewalk piece of it. There hasn't been any real discussion yet about the fence relocation at the rear. I think there are some concerns because of the scale of how much of that fence would have to be relocated, that it could have an impact on how security would be handled for the remainder of the base and potential upgrades to the entire system. If it's almost like if you're doing an upgrade to a house and you get over the 50% threshold, you got to bring the wiring and everything else up to code. So it could be something similar to that. So,
Okay.
all right, LED street lighting conversion, just keeping that in front of you guys. The contract's been signed. Hopefully we're somewhere in the queue for that to happen. So we're pretty excited about that. Second part of that we've already covered with the overhead discussion. Local option sales tax. I know that was a topic of discussion at the county retreat. I think they had some concerns about taking it up as a referendum item in 2021. And we're contemplating pushing it to 2022. But it seems to be the consensus of most of the municipalities that we would prefer to pursue this in 2021 as an option for the voters. I mean, ultimately, it's the voters that will determine whether this passes or not, and they should be at least given the option of saying yes or no. When we contemplate Lost, there is some thought that this is a municipal property tax relief and project fund, or that we're going to receive the primary benefit of this. However, the county property owners are entitled to the same property tax relief, and the county council will have the same discretion to manage above and beyond what is designated for property tax relief as they see fit. And this is something that is reviewed annually and designated annually. We've always taken the position that if this happens, that those funds would be earmarked for infrastructure related to streets and sidewalks and associated utility relocations, anything that would help us, address our paving and road resurfacing and sidewalk programs. So I think there's some discussion about advocating for getting it on the 2021 ballot, but we'll see whether that happens. We had the mayor's talked about this a little bit, and Joe, I'll defer to you on your thoughts about where we think this might go.
Yeah, I can do it. The mayors did discuss this, and it was also discussed last Friday at the Northern Regional Plan meeting as well. And there were the council members at that meeting seemed to be understood a little bit about what we're looking for, but all the mayors are supporting, and all the administrators too at that point are supporting that we push this on the 2021. One of the mayors has taken this up as a task to pen a letter that we can all then sign and send off. Once again, I'll share that with you like I have with anything that's joint signature, and we'll share it with you and move this forward. We were trying to make sure the county members that were hearing me talk about this last week is that, they're talking about a bigger penny transportation the following year, 2022, And my statement to them was, if you do this first in 2021, then you will also get the opportunity to see what type of revenue this is going to bring in, and you can reduce the penny in 2022. So that there's a chance to do that. And we need to remember that 47% of this dollars that come in will come in from people that are visiting this community and the county. So they will help pay for the road infrastructure that we need as they come and enjoy this wonderful place that we all live. So, that was the kind of the pitch that I was throwing out there last Thursday. And I'll keep you informed as we move this along. Time is short. We may be slightly behind the 8 ball, but I think the municipalities all feel like if we could get a solid commitment that this would move forward, that things can move fast enough that it'll be able to educate the community on the November ballot. And there is some conversation. They think it's a special election. It is not. There is already going to be an election in Port Royal in November, and there will be an election in Bluffton in November. So 2 communities are already holding that. It's just a matter of opening other polling places. Kevin, did you have something?
And Mayor, you brought up a great point too, that when we were talking about it, that this has to be put on as a referendum, correct?
Yes,
This is not something that the county can just vote on. This has to be put in front of
that is
all
correct.
of Beaufort County's residents and voted
Correct.
on.
And that is correct. And, we as politicians would not come out publicly and support or against, like the county, like the school board. If you remember last year on theirs, all board members were neutral. It is a matter of getting it out to the public, asking the public if they would like to support this and educate them on what it brings in. I think that, we've got our council workshop next month. And this is going to be a topic that we're going to have to talk about there. And I think this topic, along with some sort of other way to get road maintenance fees, are going to have to be discussed rather seriously. I don't think we can depend on one or the other. I think we have to put everything in place, because we've got to be able to deal with the long-term funding of the maintenance of our assets. And we've got to figure that out. When I did talk with the mayors recently, the last time we had talked about the potential of a tag fee, and we talked about this at the workshop, there were a couple that were discussing it. Bluffton has moved forward with it. They've done it. They've added it. Hilton Head has added theirs. And once again, the city and us have to think about what we want to do to go ahead and put some long-term funding plans in place. Probably a little longer than I needed, Van, but it's important we get all this information out.
That's all right. Next item, Smilex Ron Road. Nothing new, just leaving it on there. No updates at this time. Retreat, obviously, we're scheduled for, I believe, March 27th. If there's topics you want added beyond what we normally do, please let myself or Brooke know, and we'll get those added. And on the employment front, I do have an inspector that's starting in April, so we're excited about that. I see Linda down at the bottom of the screen, so we're still dealing with that one. So we'll get that squared away. And then obviously, Tony retired as well. And we were designating a certain amount of dollars on an annual basis for him to manage projects and kind of work as a liaison between engineering firms in the town. And so we do have some dollars available. I am talking to the city. I talked to ProCop about one thing in particular that we may be able to work on together. So I'll keep you posted on that. That's all I have on that one. Short-term rental software. I've been talking to some vendors, because obviously we've been going back and forth with, how do we accurately account for the units that are in town and ensure that, number one, that we're receiving proper payment and that they're in compliance and properly licensed. And I've talked to a few of the vendors, and they're very reasonable. And I did have a discussion with Bluffton also. We'd obviously been talking to the city about their experience. And Bluffton basically, told me that since they've deployed the software, they feel very confident that their collections are being appropriately handled and accounted for, because they have some frame of reference beyond hopefully getting what we'd like to see from the state, which is more information on the units in town. But the cost associated with the software certainly justifies the expense. And I don't know if Reese can speak to this, but I think the city is has been helped by the use of the software, correct, Reese?
Yes, sir. I used to be a lot more spun up on it, but generally speaking, our vendor does a very good job, and I don't think very many slip through the cracks at all.
Are y'all with is it home compliance? I can't remember.
Host
Compliance. Host compliance. And that's who Bluffton is using as well. So I've talked to them as a vendor, and there's one other company that I've been talking to so far.
And I'll say really quick, just the point of that, talking about this, how it came up, not just making sure the town is receiving, its correct tax revenues, but that we don't have citizens that have short-term rentals that are being double taxed, because that's how this was
Right.
brought up. We've got multiple citizens coming to us that have paid this tax, that tax. They don't know where to go with it. So, I mean, it also protects them as well.
Yeah, and that's been kind of a problem for us because, we had in one instance where they paid us and then they paid the state, but we have no way of knowing what they paid the state because when we receive that payment from the state, it has nothing that tells us what units that payment applies to. So there's no way to do reconciliation to address that. So
And
anything that will help that situation would be good.
Right. I agree. And the other thing that's interesting is that, if you read articles about short-term rental industry, they said it didn't really take much of a hit in 2020 and it actually was doing better, but yet our revenues are much lower. So is it that people realize that is it an issue of collection is one of the concerns that I have versus that it's actually not doing as well. So we got to move this forward, and I think Van's got a good plan.
All right. And then the last item is COVID related issues. As you know, the governor lifted the 11 p.m. restriction on alcohol bars, that sort of thing. And then the second thing he removed was the required waiver for any event over 200 with attendance of over 250. Right now the town is kind of capped park attendance events at about 50. So it's probably something we need to discuss. I don't know if y'all are prepared to do that tonight or you want to think about it and come back next week. But we are already getting those phone calls because we hosted events at our facilities that have 250 plus people. So it's kind of put us kind of back in that discussion, if you will. People reaching back out to us and asking when we're going to allow those events back in those parks.
Do you think council retreats, what 2.5 weeks, or is that too far out to talk about it there? Does that ruin anything, or is that a good time, you think?
I'm fine waiting that. We have the spring concert series as well, so that we've got our own event.
Yeah.
That we've got to deal with, and I believe that's typically May. So that may give us a little time, but staff needs clarification from council on how y'all want to move that forward. And that's all I've got.
Kevin, I think you're right. I think it's a good point. The couple more weeks, seeing what's happening with the change, the last COVID change also, which is starting Monday. 1B is in place, 55 and older, and a lot of other risk personnel can also get the shot starting Monday. And we need to see how that happens with the latest vaccine. So I think that the workshop is a good place to do this. Remember, it's nothing that we ever voted on. So it is a direction to council is all they need. So a conversation at the workshop would give them the direction that they needed. So I think it's a good place for it, and everybody can think about it and prepare themselves. Certainly the spring concert series and then the fall concert series, we got to think about what we want to do with those. So let's make sure we add that to the agenda. We'll call that telling you we would like that added to the agenda. How's that, Kevin? So the next item is to review the agenda for next week. And everybody has had that now, and we've got, anybody have any questions or need any clarifications about any items on the agenda? Council's all good?
Well, I was
Sir.
gonna really is
Good.
so I'm looking right here. So first reading number B, that has been withdrawn, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It's not, yeah, it's not on mine already. I'm looking at the
Been updated.
online version. It's been removed already. The
Gotcha.
online version's been removed. Everybody, also first reading A, ordinance 2021-8, an ordinance consenting to the conclusion of certain properties in the joint county industrial park within the town of Port Royal, approving certain intergovernmental agreements between the town and Beaufort County of South Carolina and matters related to. Then I think we're going to need a really good explanation about what that multi-jurisdictional industrial park is, how it's going to affect if it is going to affect our tax base, and how it affects the TIF. I think council's going to need a really good understanding about what it means if we move forward with that in that way. So let's make sure we're prepared for that.
Yeah, and I think we're pulling something together that will hopefully shed some light on all of that, because it is complicated. And we have to understand what the impacts of designating either one of those properties has, because one of the parcels is in the TIF, the Port TIF, and the other is currently involved as part of the litigation with Burton. So anytime, a property is included in one of these things, one of the sections you have to be very wary of is the distribution of revenue, and the hierarchy of how it is distributed, and that is where we're concerned. So we have made that very, very clear to the county that those are concerns. And to be quite honest with you, I think the city of Beaufort is dealing with the same issue at the moment as well on two parcels. So.
And hopefully we've also got them to understand that we don't want to be behind the 8 ball again and having them already approve something and then needing an intergovernmental agreement. We want the intergovernmental agreement discussed beforehand.
Correct. And
Well,
that's one of the things that's been changed in the protocols with the Economic Development Corporation when they move any of these forward now. They readily admitted that was something that was overlooked. They've corrected it, at least they corrected it for Port Royal, and then obviously became aware of the city of Beaufort situation. So that won't happen again.
And the last item on the agenda, as this is the first time I've seen this type of an item on the agenda since I've been on council. Chief Beach, can you talk a little bit about the resolution with the joint agreement with the town of Yamasee? He'll get unmuted. I
Okay,
didn't
got
say-
it.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Yeah, they have to go through council every time we do a MOU with other agencies. We have to have your blessing, in other words.
right. But have we ever had an MOU before with Yamasee, or is this the first time we're bringing this up and it's just being renewed?
We have, but it's been years ago.
Very good.
And this is a formalization between the agencies as to how we will account for manpower, equipment, costs borne by either, and under what parameters we can call upon each other to mutually assist either agency.
Correct.
I think it's great at Yamasee. If anybody follows Yamasee, which I do a little bit, they just recently annexed a lot of property on the Port Royal, on the Beaufort side again. They are definitely becoming more than our neighbors. They're in our community more and more and moving in this direction. So I'm glad to see that we're willing to help them and participate in any way we can in that aspect.
And
And I assume- Go ahead, Kevin, please.
I would imagine, Chief Beach, correct me if I'm wrong, this probably, I would imagine, just provides the ability for us to, in emergency situations, back each other up.
Correct. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And we have one with all the different law enforcement agencies.
We do, minus the sheriff's office, and we'll have another one coming up with Bluffton because Chief Price took the new position, so we'll have to do a updated one with hers shortly.
And you said minus the sheriff's department, we do not have one with them?
Long story. I can tell you later.
Okay. Very good.
Yes, sir.
Council, any other questions on the agenda? We have our appointments. For next week, we've got Parks and Rec, which we've had one interview tonight, and we have reappointments to the Historic Preservation Commission. Kit Bruce, Ann Ellaby, and Mike Jones have all asked to serve again. If they're listening, thank you very much to all of you for serving. And then we've got the 3 council actions. We've already heard about all of them and their actions we need to take forward. We got 2 important dates on next week's agenda, the 16th and the 27th of March, redevelopment commission, and the town retreat on the 27th. Van, we going to be able to have some sort of an idea at next week's meeting on how the public can pass on information to us that they'd like us to discuss in that retreat? I think we're going to have to figure something out. Maybe we can tell them next week how to handle that, because it's going to have to be a closed door because we just don't have the ability to social
Right.
distance.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we'll hopefully be able to, like you said, get the word out. And if there's comments or commentary they'd like to make, or we can, if there's things that they'd like to talk to y'all specifically about, because of the size of the room, maybe we can schedule them in and out rather than all in the room at one time. Certainly, we will have it, the meeting, Facebook Live. So there will be opportunities there. And, you may change up your protocols a little bit to take some of the Facebook commentary that makes sense, that is pertinent to the discussion at hand. I wanted to qualify that. And, so that they'll have their opportunity.
And I think maybe we could frame that next week at our regular meeting to say, how we'd like to see those comments on Facebook, that we can deal with them. So, very good. Council, questions, concerns about the agenda?
I don't have anything on the agenda, Joe, but I was wondering about the stop sign right here on 16th and Fort Frederick Circle here. The one that disappeared, Van, we talked about.
Stop sign.
Oh.
Disappeared?
Stop sign.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Fort Frederick, that's going to be an interesting scenario. Fort Frederick Circle, and Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, that's not Fort Frederick Circle, but you're talking about the 16th Street extension.
Yeah.
And the road that used to be around the old park.
Right. The road is still
Right.
there, park.
Right. Well, how do I say this? It was never a town road.
Mm-hmm.
It was a drive that circulated the park. Now, the town obviously, and what 16th Street extension is, I believe, Linda, correct me if I'm wrong here again, that's an easement through that property, is it not?
What I've researched at Beaufort County GIS, Beaufort County is saying it's a county road. 16th Street extension is.
Yeah,
So
16th Street, it is.
from Shell to
Okay.
the water's edge is a county road.
That is correct,
Um,
because I deeded my property that
Yes.
was where the road was deeded to the
Mhm.
county to make that road.
Yeah.
And so the stop sign that was removed from the Fort Frederick section
Circle,
interfacing
and-
with
16th
16th Street extension. Yeah.
extension.
Now, Fort Frederick Circle, of course, would be a private road intersecting a county road. So the intersection that I believe you're talking about is a private road intersecting a public county road.
We've had a stop sign there for years.
Uh-huh.
All of a sudden, after our incident with the trash truck, that sign went away.
Okay,
It'd been there umpteen years prior to that.
okay.
Well, I guess what we need to figure out is if they are required, because I think the position they're taking is that that is a private drive. And y'all, I believe, have an easement through there to access Lottery Lane, if you will.
I'd like, Van, I'd like to check with the building official, because I think that there may be some regulation. There obviously is a difference between a driveway and a named private road.
Gotcha.
And I'm boiling this down to maybe that's exactly the definitions that we've got in front of us. But before I go any further, I'd like to understand now from the building official what the building code will tell us about life safety with regard to those two situations.
Well, and I think the police chief may have an opinion on that as well, in terms of what the traffic law might be for a private road intersecting with a county, state, or municipal road.
Well, I just find it strange that all of a sudden now you're saying we don't need it when we've had it all these years.
I'm not taking, no, I've never taken that position, but if it's going to be required, Alan, I want you to look into that, then it'll have to be reinstalled.
Absolutely. I just made a note, so I'll get on that first thing in the morning.
All right.
Thank you.
According to state law, I will let you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Gotcha.
The only thing that I have, I addressed it before. You know, we have a countywide plastic bag ordinance, and I've since seen the supermarket back in compliance, but I've seen a couple other establishments and one directly next door recently that has gone back to the old plastic bags. And, you know, I just find it baffling that you have a countywide ordinance, or and I'm not aware if the ordinance has been relaxed because of COVID-19 or not. So, but again,
Which store are you thinking?
Roses.
Talking about
Roses.
Roses. Well, I will say this. I was in Roses the other day, and the bag I got was the heavier gauge plastic.
I was in there yesterday, and I got.
They must have run out again.
I got plastic bags at Piggly Wiggly today.
Okay.
Me too. I got plastic bags after church on Sunday at Piggly Wiggly.
I got
the lightweight ones.
I'll look into it.
Okay.
Are those the lightweight bags or the heavier bags? Just curious.
The lightweight bags.
All right.
Well, the other issue I have, Chief, is the people that park in the fire lane right there in front of the Piggly Wiggly at all hours of the day and night because they think they own that parking lot.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief
I
Bertos,
mean, if they're gonna park there, I'm gonna park there, and you better not give me a ticket if you ain't giving them one.
everybody
We
get-
did Port Royal make the
All right.
decision that they don't have to get a ticket.
I'll work on it.
Hold on here. Yeah, certainly let's give them an opportunity to see if they can't deal with that issue.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And that was the last items on our agenda. We've already talked about the important dates other than our meeting of March 9th. So if there's nothing else for the good of the town, we can adjourn.
All right. See you all next week. Be safe.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.